for a temporary suspension of the face-to-face till December 31st of 2020 or another
2020.
bit.
Is there a second? Second by Heidi?
No,
Gwen?
actually, I wasn't seconding it, but I have a question, but I guess
Well,
I can second it.
I'll second it.
All right. Further discussion, John?
No,
Heidi, you have discussion?
Yeah, so are they gonna come to our Zoom meeting so we can ask questions of them?
The public is always invited.
No, the applicants for the boards and commissions.
Well, if you can figure a good way of doing it, Heidi, go invite them.
So, Amy, is that not possible?
It's possible to be done. We can invite the applicants. It's however you want to do it.
Right now, the motion on the floor is extended. If they want to join in, they're welcome. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
do we need a roll call?
Why
No,
do we have to do roll call? These are committees.
All right.
John, you're a council meeting. That's 2 weeks from tonight.
You got a date tonight or something, Jerry? You got a date tonight or something?
Oh, why? All right, we're gonna get into the applicants for the Board of Commission, and what we're gonna do, Amy's gonna read them in the position that they're applying for. Then we'll talk about an executive session when we're done. So Amy, you wanna go?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay, okay.
A little low, but yes.
I was having some issues. Okay, how's that sound?
Better.
Okay. So we have 8 of the boards and commission that have openings. And in the packet, I'll share my screen. We have all of the August 2020 candidates. So you should be able to see, can you see my screen? So we have the Board of Building Appeals. There are 5 vacancies. We have a new applicant. He's our first applicant, David Salkinek. He also applied for the health board. So in the packet, you'll see his application and his resume. And then the Board of Health, there's 1 vacancy, and it's actually Louise Frederick's position. She, if you remember, she was you just appointed her to the Board of Health to fill the unexpired term of Joan Seidel. So she's seeking reappointment on the board. And then we also have 2 new applicants, Lindsay Noack and David Salkinek. There's no applicants for the Equalization Assessment Board. The Fair Housing Board, there's 1 applicant, and her name is Andrea Blackwood, and she is a new applicant as well. And she has also applied for the PARTA board. None for the Loan and Review Board. Parking Action Committee, there's 3 vacancies. William Arthur is seeking reappointment. And then the PARTA board, there's actually 2 vacancies. And we have 3 new applicants there listed: Jack Murphy, Andrea Blackwood, and Karen Beck. And then the Storm District Review and Appeals, we have no applicants.
Okay, is there any questions?
I have one.
Mike?
Now, Louise Frederick hasn't even probably been to a meeting yet, has she?
I think she's been to maybe 1 or 2. Joan, I
One.
think she's.
Okay, I was just curious because we just did that, and
Yeah.
I'd feel bad not to put her back on there.
Right.
She's just getting started.
Yeah.
I think she's been to a total of 2 meetings.
Okay, thanks, Joan. That's all.
Question.
Heidi?
Yeah, I mean, without people coming before us, and even then we can only make a guess, how can we determine whether somebody is from a minority group? Because that's something that we have prioritized, having more diversity on our boards and commissions. So I know that's not a question on the application. So just
I don't know how you can put that as a question on an application. You can't.
No, it's against the law.
I would say so.
Why? I don't think it would be, but I mean, we are always having to check that box, you know?
Are there any other questions?
Well, maybe what we ought to do is have Hope investigate that down the line and see if that's a possibility. I do know that from the educational standpoint, that was a big no-no. And then we would have to go out and really work hard to try to find some minority candidates. So, you know, maybe Hope, you could come back our next meeting and give us a little insight on that.
Wait.
Might I?
Hope,
Might
you have
I?
it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you going to answer that, Hope?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought that Robin wanted to say something.
Oh,
Yeah, I will.
Well, I
look at-
do, but
all right. We'll
might
get
be-
to you, Robin.
We might be. able
that's
to-
fine. Thank
We
you.
might be able to put on there, you don't have to answer this question, but if you'd like to,
Oh, there you go.
here's the option. So yes, I will look at that.
Okay. Robin, did you have further to say?
Yeah, I think we just have to kind of do the hard work of outreach in the community. Going to churches, certain civic organizations, so on and so forth, to let them know that we are encouraging their participation in the process. I think it's going to be very difficult to start doing questionnaires, putting that on your applications and stuff. That's problematic to me, and I mean, I certainly support where Heidi's coming from. I think that's something but I do think that listing that is a little difficult. I just think we have to do more outreach in the community to let people know that we are desirous of having them participate. More of the onus probably falls on me and a couple of other individuals to get out and start trying to encourage people to participate more in the city and the life as an official in the city. And the way to do that is to start knocking on those doors. So that's kind of what I think we have to do in that regard. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I at first I was going to suggest what Hope had suggested, but now, with Robin's information, giving it more thought, it wouldn't matter because they'd already be on an application. They'd just be filling out a blank that they were a minority group. And if they're not getting on the applications, we haven't done the base work in the first time. So I think Robin's right on that. You have to get them on the application for them to, in the first place.
Further, John?
No.
Heidi?
Yeah, I mean, look, we asked them for political party, but we say you don't have to say it. It's optional. Actually, I see political party. That doesn't say optional. We asked them their education, their place of employment. I mean, I really don't see why we couldn't do that. And, do we have a policy? That's my next question. Do we have an actual policy of prioritization? So maybe if we don't have a policy, that may be something we need to talk about. We know what we informally would like to see, but if we had a policy, then we would have to have some way of identifying people, because if you go out and recruit all these folks, but you really don't know because we don't get to see them, and even that's kind of like you never know. How do we really determine that? So I guess, we have to look at this. This is sort of maybe a longer discussion regarding policy. Also for hiring, we might want to have that discussion, but this is similar to that.
Yeah.
We're making an appointment.
But
Roger.
Mayor,
Go,
Mayor.
let Robin go. Let Robin go first.
All right. Go, Robin.
oh, I'm sorry. We look. I couldn't, like I said, I can't agree with Heidi more in the intent of what we would like to do, but you have to balance these things. Once you start going out and basically saying these are the numbers that we have to have, that becomes a little more problematic. I think that what we do is go out and encourage people to participate. We cannot demand, or we can't create numbers. What we can do is, and we can encourage that. And so we have to be very mindful that what do you do once you get to your certain number? Then stop bringing people on because of race. We do know that there's a need, and we understand where we have a need for greater participation. We've identified that. Now we have to do the hard work, but you do know it when you see it. When you have adequate participation and you're getting the voices that you need that create a much more diverse type of participation and access in your community. But we do have to be careful about this. And as Heidi, as you said, that's a discussion I think we really need to have. I don't think that's something we just jump into willy-nilly. That we have to be careful about it. And so I'm in agreement. I think that's something we need to discuss a little further and then come at it from, I think, a different direction and approach.
Well, I was going to say, Robin, I agree with you. I think that we're starting to see at least some elements of a plan that gets at the whole diversity across all of our positions and all of the things that we have in our community, as well as on our like police force, our fire department. I think that where you start, from a foundation piece, is what is it that we can legally do, and that's why I don't want to give Hope more work, but I think that's really important that we know what are the legal things we can do, and then we begin to build a framework of these type of strategies. I agree with Robin. This is not something that we just jump right in and start knocking on doors and without a vision of what we want. And I think that vision is through building that process. And I think we need to work with Dave and the rest of the administration on that, because that spills over into the hiring, with our HR people and things like that. So I agree that we have to do something, but I think I'd like to start with the legal piece first. What is it that we can do with advertising, how we might be able to do it, and then we begin to strategize. And maybe put it in a committee.
Mike? Unmute yourself, Mike.
I didn't want you to hear my dogs, but couldn't we have a photograph with every application?
Sure.
That's one way, but that's all.
All right, John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I have to agree with Robin. When you start directing who you're trying to get on a board or a commission, I mean, if that isn't discrimination, I don't know what is. We're opening up positions, and you're getting off the side on trying to direct certain people. It's almost like redlining, and you're walking a very narrow legal scope. I think Robin's got the right idea, where you just have to publicize, what Kent's all about. And because we're not looking for black people, we're not looking for red people, we're not looking for white people. We're looking for volunteers for our boards and commissions. And we should, and like in the real estate, we have a blind eye to that stuff, and we should have it at a council also.
Gwen?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm not sure people are comfortable filling out information about their ethnicity. I think that or a photograph, I think you might inadvertently discourage people from applying for these positions. I think that just like in any other hiring scenario, We recruit people, we reach out, we have an idea of who they are, we get references, and I think that's the best way to go. This is just a temporary solution during this pandemic, so I don't think we need to upend our process right now during this specific meeting because this is temporary. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Heidi?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's very common, like for grants, to have prioritizations of you have to look at women and minority-owned businesses first. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, prioritization and a way that we can actually do that. So the legal basis is first, as Roger said, so we can wait till Hope comes back to us. But, you know, this is really common stuff. And if you can't identify somebody, if you got to rely on what they look like, that's not enough to really develop the diversity we want. And look, we have 2 people that I know of that are racial minorities out of 99 people on our boards and commissions. That's pretty bad. We have to let people know, you know, if we do develop a policy, we let people know. And I don't think people are going to be offended by that. That's just my opinion, and we can bring it back another time, but I think that you're going to see examples of this all over the place.
Somebody else have their hand up?
Yes, I
Oh,
do.
Gwen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree completely with the intent on it. And I'm pretty sure Tracy just made a motion at the last meeting that boards and commissions that we consider and we look into how we can encourage more. Isn't that right? Didn't we made a
Yes.
motion for city
Yes.
department,
Yep.
police department,
Across the
fire, and
city.
boards and commissions?
There we go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's being addressed already. So I don't think we need to ask people to self-identify as any particular race or gender right now.
Okay, Roger, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one thing. We do need to go out and recruit, but you recruit candidates for the position. Because if we're going to set standards for when we interview, you don't recruit a person for the position. You recruit a candidate for those positions. And I think that's real important because when you're talking with especially younger people, they need to know that they're going to be competing, but that we see something in them that we'd like to see them throw their hat in the ring, but they're a candidate. They're not recruiting them to fill because that gets us in trouble when we do that.
Is there any more? I gotta say, you know, we advertised in the Tree City Bulletin. How many of you actually took it and went to different groups of people and asked them to apply? So part of it's on your shoulder too.
Mhm.
So, all right, we're gonna move ahead. Boards and commissions update, Hope and Amy.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Can you guys hear me?
Not very well.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Did you vote on that last issue?
There wasn't anything to vote.
No, we didn't make.
Was, yes, there
There was
was.
no
We had a
motion.
To extend.
We extended.
Yeah, motion to extend.
No, we didn't. We had a long conversation.
Yeah, involved into something else. Amy, we did not vote.
We voted on it. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah, we did. That's right.
Okay, well, we kind of got off track here, as usual.
Aren't you the chair of the committee here, Mr. Mayor?
I tried.
I'm just checking.
It's your turn, Garrett. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. Way back in January, before all the craziness hit with the pandemic, actually, Gwen Rosenberg made a motion at a council meeting regarding boards and commissions. She requested 2 items to be reviewed. The first one is to revisit how vacancies are advertised and filled. So it's very timely that we're talking about this right now. She mentioned she would like to hear back on expediting the filling of vacancies. That the Tree City Bulletin is great, but it only comes out quarterly and it makes it kind of difficult to fill positions quickly when they come up vacant. And then she also asked the city to provide a report back on making more uniform the lengths and terms and term limits, or to look at the consistency of those. So Hope and Bridget and I have met a couple times over the last few months to discuss these issues. And we put together a spreadsheet that we'll go over here in a minute. And we put together some ideas maybe to just throw out there for discussion with you regarding those two items. So how the vacancies are advertised and term limits. So the first one, the how vacancies are filled. Currently, I'm going to share my screen.
All right, let's see how the hell we can do it. Amy's talking right now.
Jerry, you have to mute yourself.
Let me see what we can do here. All right, thanks. Hey, Amy.
Yeah.
Not to distort things here, but Tracy says she never got a Zoom invitation.
Oh.
In our email.
Okay, I resent it.
Did you invite her?
Yeah, so I resent it.
All right.
So she should be getting it.
Okay.
Okay.
You got
My dogs.
Okay. So let me start over. So currently the boards and commissions are advertised. This is how they're in the standing rules. This is how announcements are made for the boards and commissions. So currently they're made by the clerk of council in the Tree City Bulletin, on the city's website, and in the Record Courier when necessary. When a vacancy occurs, the clerk and the staff member on the board is authorized to advertise the vacancy in the Record Courier and on the city's website only. So basically, in the standing rules, it currently, my understanding or our understanding is that to advertise for boards and commissions, we would put an advertisement in the Tree City Bulletin, which comes out 4 times a year. So it's not really, there's not really a way to expedite that unless you were to change the way that vacancies are advertised. So some suggestions that we came up with is maybe to update the process and just have a more broad application process as far as advertising is concerned. So such things as announcing on social media, posting it on the city's website, announcing it at council meetings, posting it on the bulletin board, on the community sign, and then also notifying residents in the Tree City Bulletin to referring them back to the website to know, what positions are free. So it would be like vacancies to be advertised using all available methods of communication available to the clerk of council, including but not limited to those methods. So we might, if we expand the way that we advertise, perhaps we would get more applicants. So that's the first kind of item. You guys have any questions about that?
Sounds good to me.
Mike?
Everything you said there, it sounds like we should be probably doing that already, instead of, I think it's a good idea, so. Who's running this meeting? Garret?
Oh, he's on mute. Garret, he's muted.
It's the mayor.
I'm so
There
sorry.
he
I'm
is.
doing like 4 things at the same time.
Oh,
Job description.
That's right.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Still muted, Mr. Mayor.
All right, what did I miss now? We're still trying to get Tracy in.
Yeah.
no.
think it sounds good. I like the wider we broadcast these vacancies and positions as being available, the more shareable it is, and the more people realize that there's opportunity to participate in local government. So I'm all for expanding our reach and letting people know about these positions.
You make a cartoon for YouTube.
Can I speak? I'm gonna
Go ahead.
piggyback. I want to piggyback on Gwen. I find it kind of interesting that we name a particular newspaper in our standing rules. You know, it seems like, well, you know, we're not rolling in newspapers right now, but we do have some online publications, and we have, I know that many people do not get the local newspaper. That maybe we want to expand that as well. I don't know. I guess doing it on social media might help. It is hard to know how to get a hold of people, isn't it? That's why we put up a great big sign at the main intersection.
Well, you know, Heidi, you bring up a good point. Maybe referring back to our last conversation about how maybe we need to put together a list of where we send these things, these notifications, whether they be our churches, our social organizations, our, you know, the various organizations in the community that I can't even think of off the top of my head. Well, like Rotary or whatever. Maybe every time we send those, we should send those out because they're like a listserv. And they could be, ask them to be read at their meetings that these are available, or ask them to make sure their membership knows, which builds a little bit about what Robin was saying. You know, if I'm a pastor of a church and I have a church organization and we get this notification from the city, I'm sure they'll pass that on. You know, it may take a little practice, but I think that's a good thing to do. I think that's a better way than going to the newspaper. You know, the paper that shall not be named, right, Heidi?
Right.
Heidi, you have something?
Me?
Okay, go ahead. I thought Heidi had her. Go ahead. Amy, go.
Okay, the next item was the more unified length of term and possible term limits. So the next document that's in your packet, and I apologize, it is so tiny, the print, but it's hard to print an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will help if you want to follow along on the screen, taking a look at this spreadsheet. But what Hope, Bridget, and I did was we went through and actually did a kind of a deeper dive on the boards and commissions and listed all of our boards and commissions and what their terms are, how many members are in each of the boards and commissions, how the board was created, its purpose, if there were any departments that support the board. And then in some of the column, or in this column, we have some notes on some of the items for you to review. So they're just suggestions. So you can see anywhere from, terms run anywhere from 2 to 6 years. Not all of the boards, not all of the boards have term limits. So there's currently only 3 that have limits. The Board of Health has 2 consecutive terms. The Planning Commission and the Sustainability Commission are the only 3 that have term limits. So, you know, it is kind of a little all over the place, as you can see. So if you know, possibly some ideas would be to establish universal term limits if we're able to do that. So maybe like a suggestion or an idea we were thinking of is maybe have no more than 3 terms or 15 years, whichever comes first. And then maybe have the person sit out for a length of a full term. These are just ideas, but it's just to get the conversation going. And then maybe possibly if you want to look at limiting who's on those boards. So that was another idea that was floated. So that's on the length of term and the term limits. And then the term expiration is all over the place as well.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Are these, we can do that, or are these things in the charter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So anything on this chart that has a little dot next to it right here, those can currently be changed. But anything that's in the charter, of course, would need to go through the charter review process.
Okay, thank you.
So the term expiration, before I started in this position, terms were reworked. So most of the boards and commissions have an expiration date. So if someone were to apply, their term would expire 3 years in December. So, you know, they've all kind of lined up so that they expire in December. So they're uniform, and it's very helpful to have them all uniform. The one thing about having them all uniform is the timing, because in December I was telling, we were talking about this, we're going to have 14 positions open on boards and commissions to interview for. So that's something to also consider. Like we'll possibly have to have an extra meeting, because I don't know if we'd be able to get through all 14 positions in one shot. So that's something else to consider.
Vision? Mm-hmm.
About all I have. Hope, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I guess my concern was regarding the membership. I'm sorry, Robin?
Go, Robin.
Oh, okay. My question was regarding the membership. I was wondering, and I was seeking a review or wanting the review to establish where there are times when they're not meeting their quorum or being able to meet because they're not getting the participation from the membership through appointment, or because of the numbers, or because of lack of participation. That the numbers might perhaps be reduced in order to be more effective in the regard of pursuing exactly their purpose and their function. Did you, in evaluating that situation, did you come to any determination about that? I know there were some that we just couldn't get enough people to apply to the positions to, I think, meet the quorum requirement.
Yeah, we did. There are several on here that currently don't have any members. So, and we made a note of that on this chart that's in your packet. So, for instance, the Cable Television Committee, which was established a while ago, has no members on it. So it's currently a committee with no members on it. Same with the Equalization Assessment Board. There are no members on it. Hope, do you want to address how Cuyahoga Falls handled their equalization board with only doing it when they needed it?
Yeah, I would suggest that we rethink the equalization board. In Cuyahoga Falls, we never established an equalization board until we were ready to do a public improvement that required us to have one. So really, to have a board like the equalization board on the books when, you know, there's no members on it, but if there were members, they could go years and years and years without ever meeting because there's not a public improvement that needs to be equalized. So we're going to ask you to think about reworking that. We're also going to ask you to possibly repeal that cable television committee, because there's been so many changes in the Telecommunications Act of 1996. You don't need that board. It's useless. And that we can get rid of that. I think that Robin is right that some of these boards, maybe we can reduce the members so that we can achieve a quorum. As you know, I've honestly never seen so many boards and commissions in a community as this, and it kind of makes me wonder if that's the reason why you're not getting enough participation to even fill them. So maybe we would look at taking a look at some of them and maybe putting together what they do. Maybe take one or two boards and say, you know what, maybe they can do the work of three, and then they're able to meet and they have the quorum that they need. One other thing, there are a few of these that, because of the charter or state law, we will not be able to change the terms or how many people sit on them, or the term limits as well. One other thing that I noticed about Kent that is different from other communities that I've served in, and I'm not going to say this because I think it's wrong, because I'm not sure I do, but in the other communities that I've served on, if you are on one board or commission, you are considered a public official, and you are not, and as you are in Kent, and you are not permitted to sit on any other board or commission. That it's like, it's very similar to, Dave appointed me as the law director. That's what I do. I am not the service director. I can't sit on charter review. I can't be the city manager. And in other communities, it's very similar. You're on the Civil Service Commission. You can't serve on planning. You can't serve on zoning. Again, that might be because we need our community to work with us and to be engaged. That's something that you would want to go and look at very in detail, because we do want people to be on our boards and commissions. And if you have one or two people that really do like to engage and they're on more than one board, that's a hard question we'll need to think about. But I wanted to throw that out there and at least let you you think about it and chew on it for a little bit.
Jack?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Hope, are you done?
I am, sir.
All right, Jack?
I think you're right, Hope. And part of the issues I think we have is that a lot of these committees don't meet on a regular basis. I knew somebody on the cable television board, they never met. So he was very discouraged and said, I'll never volunteer again to be on a committee because I've never met. And I think sometimes service to people, we appoint them and then the committees don't meet. And that's a problem. So I think you're absolutely right, Hope.
If I remember, there was some history behind that cable thing. We had two different companies wanted to come in Kent, and I think that's where that came from.
Right.
But that's been 50 years ago.
Yep.
Tracy, you had your hand up, young lady?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, about the people that are on multiple committees. Do we have many people like that? I mean, I think it's a good idea not to allow that, but do we have many that are doing that right now?
We have a couple.
Okay. That's
Roger,
all.
you have you done, Tracy?
Done.
Yep.
Roger?
Yeah. Maybe what we could do, maybe, Hope, I don't know if this is legal or not, but it sounds like I was on the equalization board at one time years ago. And, yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. But
memories.
Yeah, those were, yeah. But what I'm going to suggest is, can't we group, because I think that that's part of the problem if there aren't clear objectives of what the organization is going to do and we have something for them to do, then what happens is there is that discouragement. People will say they don't want to come onto it. So is it possible for us to group them and make some of these what I would call ad hoc committees that we can just appoint as needed? And we have them sitting there in our pocket off to the side. We actually call them, city council ad hoc committees, needed as needed. And then we really fill those ones that we really have to have them working on, and we need them to work on every month or every couple of weeks or whatever. And I think maybe that would be a way of reorganizing it, at least a thought to reorganize it, because we may need that television thing, that cable thing someday. So if we have it sitting off to the side as an ad hoc committee that's being unfilled until it's needed, then I think it would serve our purposes, I think, better, and the community purposes.
Is there anybody else?
Yeah, I have something.
Heidi?
It sounds like Roger, it sounds kind of like you're talking about like a jury pool or something.
Yeah,
Or the
that's actually, it's just the opposite. It's actually a court pool. We have a variety of courts that we don't need anyone for until we do.
Yeah. So the thing that I have is, like, I know there's some that can't be changed very easily, but I do know that if a couple people are absent in the planning commission or the BZA, we can't have the meeting, and there seem to be not enough people on some boards, and too many on others, like the Parking Action Committee. How do you have a committee with 9 people? That seems like a lot, but I know half of it is city-based. I want to know, maybe is there a history? Could we get something from community development regarding a history of what a number of meetings that have had to be shelved due to lack of quorum? Or, it'd be interesting to see if that's really if that has been a problem, and then maybe consider adding another individual to some of those really vital boards.
Actually, Heidi, I think that when it's hard to get a quorum, you reduce the number, because the larger, the more people you stick on a board, the more people you need for a quorum.
All right, so 5. How many do you need a quorum? 3?
3.
Yep. One more than the majority, or half. John?
I guess that makes sense.
Oh, are you done, Heidi? John?
Yeah, I don't know about having that pool out there in the side somewhere. Those people are going to forget they belong to something when it's time to call them. They won't be there. But I do think that if we could have now multiple committees somehow coordinating them together where the one wouldn't conflict with the other, a person would be on a joint committee, and that way we could solve a lot of the issues with the same group of people, as long as they didn't conflict with, otherwise be in conflict with themselves with another committee. You could split them up a little bit and kind of, I don't know what you call it, but coordinate them together, so maybe you got 5 people handling 3 committees, duties.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes.
it's a point of clarification, John. I agree with you. We don't want to have a pool of people. What I'm suggesting is that we have these ad hoc committees, but we don't fill them or advertise until there's a specific need, like the equalization board. But I agree with you. Having a pool of people, and that's not going to work. That's why I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Well, then if we need them and nobody applies, we're right back where we started from.
Could be. Anybody else? Amy's looking for direction. Amy, do you have something? You got a lot of suggestions there.
I have a question real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I missed the first part of it. Are you recommending that all the boards come open at the same time, or you said that was a bad idea? So that we would stagger when the terms last?
Amy, I guess that's a question for you.
Yeah, I think I haven't experienced the full round yet, so I haven't experienced the expiration, the big expiration in December. Is that what you're talking about, the term expiration?
Yeah, so that sounds like a bad idea. So it seems like if they were staggered but had the same number of years, I mean, different committees were coming up open at certain times. It seems like the big fill on December is going to be pretty tough to do.
It's going to be difficult. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to, I see why it was done because it made everything more uniform as opposed to having, the idea was, I think, by previous clerks were to, not have like multiple months of the application process and not, keeping up with it or being consistent with the advertising of the positions, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. So I like the idea of keeping them uniform, but I just know that December is going to be very busy. Like if there's 14, not 14 people, but 14 spots available to be interviewed for, there will be a lot of people to interview. So that will almost have to be a separate meeting in my mind.
Right.
Yeah, so
it's overwhelming.
Yeah. So if we were to keep it uniform, maybe extend it or maybe have it a different time of the year and do interviews like January, February, March was a suggestion.
Okay.
Gwen?
Yeah, so I guess just for discussion's sake, or I guess what I'm in favor of, or what I would prefer to make a motion for, I'm not making a motion just yet, but just to kind of narrow our focus a little bit, I would like to see all of the suggestions done, made, move to enact the suggestions that you've made here. I'd like also to see a 2-term limit with a break, a 2-term, whatever I'm trying to say, 2-term limit with a break in between on our boards and commissions. And I also agree that I don't think we should have individuals on more than one board or commission at a time, speaking to what Hope addressed earlier. So that would be the direction I would like to go on that. I'm not sure if that's three motions. I'm not sure if that's one, but that's kind of my take on this.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
John?
Getting back to the expiration periods, we've found with when we were running our marketing company that it seemed like between Thanksgiving and the first of the year, nobody wanted to do anything. It's like the world ended at Thanksgiving and they put everything off until January or the start of the year. So that's most likely happening also if we're advertising for people during those periods of time. They're so wrapped up with the New Year's and the holidays, they don't want to take on new things. Whereas, maybe January, February, March, they're getting a new start and a new leaf on life. And that might be a better time period to look for people or to endings, or maybe twice a year, quarterly or something like that. But I know the holiday season always put a damper on us for, recruiting and stuff like that.
Tracy, you're next.
Yeah, I think John makes a good point there, that that's not a good time to recruit people during the holidays. And as far as term limits, I think that we should have at least 3 terms, because the first term you're on the board, it takes you that long to learn the proceedings of the board and how it works and things like that. So then you have 2 more terms to really get involved and work on the board, I think. So I think 3 would be a better number than just 2.
Anybody else? Is there a motion, or are we just going to give a direction? Heidi?
So several of the boards have like 6, civil service has 6 years. I mean, that's, 18 years if you have 3 terms.
Well,
what I mean?
Then I would say a certain time limit, instead of the number of terms, like maybe 10 years tops or something. And then however that fills in. So that'd be 2 terms on civil service, it'd be 3 terms on something like 3 years, like that.
We can work on that. We can work on
Yeah,
some
or maybe we
language
can
for
just
you.
make them all consistent. I mean, they don't have to be, we can make them 4 term, whatever. So they'd be all consistent.
True,
Gwen,
though,
did
but
we have something else?
some do require more, higher level of expertise, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gwen?
Yeah, my question is just, are you looking for a motion, and do we need to break it up into separate motions, or just?
They're asking for a direction.
Well, I have a motion, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
All right, go ahead, Roger. You okay with that, Gwen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I'd like to move that all the suggestions that we have, put forward, that Amy, and Hope take those suggestions and come back to us or send to us a recommendation. And we then can take that recommendation and if we want to make some amendments or whatever, we can then, instead of taking all this time because we've given them some great direction. So that's my motion.
I'll second it, even though that sounded like a direction to me.
All right.
John, I learned it from you, John. Come on.
Roger, is there further discussion?
No, I trust our people to come back to us. They've heard what our concerns are, and I think they can bring back a recommendation to us for us to act on.
John, you have further discussion? Open discussion to anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Where are we? We're at the city administration building. Baker.
Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Are you barking?
I'm not well, I could be, I might be later, but not right now. First and foremost, I just want to thank council for this opportunity tonight. You guys did receive some stuff from me on Monday. I'm really excited to bring to you tonight what we have. I think we've come a long way. We've taken everybody's suggestions, thoughts, processes, and I hope we've been able to address all of those concerns for you. We also have with us Nancy Nozick, Rick Parker, Ari Swirsky, and Olavis Humberto, I believe, with us. So they may jump in, or I may turn that over to them real quick as we go through this. So having said that, without any further ado, I'm going to try and share my screen. Can you guys see that? Oh, no.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah, we're there.
Awesome. So welcome to the Kent City Hall. I'm really pleased with this look. As some of the questions that we always had, you can begin to see how this building begins to embrace the intersection. It's very open. We wanted transparency. You can see that through the glass. You can see how people interact on the sidewalk. You can begin to see the bike path coming down and the trail that comes and opens into this corner. And then as we turn and we head down South Water Street, another nice sidewalk that'll take us back to the rear of the building. The one thing that I really like about this, and I hadn't thought about until we were in our discussions with staff, which have had many opportunities to see this. The one beautiful thing about this is that as you're coming down Haymaker, you're basically heading east on Haymaker. This is going to be outstanding for people to see as they're coming down the road, similar to the water towers that we would see behind this. I think this is going to make a presence on the horizon for us. It begins to direct people exactly where they have to go, and it just has a great look for our community. I like the fact that you can begin to see how open this is, which I think was one of the things that council as a whole felt was extremely important to them. We did go with the bricks that you guys had suggested, which is more like a medium brown brick. And then of course the white at the top of the buildings or the cornice areas. What I really like about this and the look with the windows that we had decided is, again, this begins to take a look at our past as far as the community goes. And especially we kept the arch in this location as a true nod to our past. This is what it would look like if you were standing on Haymaker, taking another look at the building. We begin to stair step. As most of you know, this is a pretty big steep hill here. So we're starting to stair step our items in. We have some nice landscaping, another nice ground monument sign. So this way for the traveling motorists that are going by this, they know they'll be able to see this and relate to this, as well as anybody that might be walking or using this hike and bike trail. And then again, just another closer version. You can see we haven't got into a lot of detail, but of course the furniture, which again, we have throughout the downtown area, the bike racks, all of those will be taking a little deeper look, but you can see we're beginning to create spaces and comfort levels for our residents, businesses, and groups to just be able to come in and enjoy this building. This is a look as we now turn and we head down Water Street. Here is this large area. This is our stairwell. So this will be an exit area from the building only. And then of course you begin to take a really nice look at council chambers. One thing that I'm really proud of that we're going to take a look at, and that is, as you have all requested, to be looking at that leads look. But again, we're going to be putting our street trees in to begin to soften this. The ability to take up some of that hard surface, that landscape area, and just really begin to soften the look of this building. As we turn the corner on Day Street and we begin the ability to turn and look in, again, you have this really nice where it's turning the corner, the sidewalks continuing. We're giving people a sense of place, where to go, and then the parking lot. And then you have the rear entrance back here. The nice part about the rear entrance here is that we have it reaching out to the parking lot. So we're inviting people in. They're clearly able to see where you enter the building here. And then as a nod to the front of the building, again, you see up at the top, the Kent City Hall. We have a nice little overhang here so people can stand or get out of the rain for that little bit of period, but it really does end up nice, does not take away from any of our nice brickwork or again, the window patterns that we felt were so important. Again, you can begin to really see the nice large cornice areas here that we have that are going to be able to go around this building. This is just another look looking at the end of this. If you remember in our floor plans on the end of the building here, this is a stairwell for emergency purposes. We've now been able to have an entry out of that stairwell as well as a secondary entrance for our employees. So if they don't all want to come through the main entrance, we will now have on this level a secondary door that they can come into. You may have had an opportunity to see that in the floor plans and we'll show that to you in a little bit. That also has a nice egress right out into the parking area. So even for cleaning and those kinds of things, they'll be able to get right to our dumpsters. This is just an overhead shot so you can begin to see how it's relating over here to our fire department, some great layouts. Again, you can begin to see the terracing going up on the side of the hills. Just how nice this is going to be able to soften this area and soften going into the parking lot. One of the hard things for me on Haymaker is that direct shot into the parking lot right now, which is just a little hard. There's no softness, there's no beauty to that. And I really think that what we're able to do with some of this landscaping will help soften all of that up. And again, this is a similar view, but then looking from the rear. So here's our site plan. One of the things you'll notice is that we have pulled the building down or back away from Haymaker a little bit and then a little bit closer, but not as close to South Water Street. That's why you have these areas that are coming up. Again, that has to do a little bit with the terrain and the way that it was going down. We also feel it fits a little bit better on the site this way. I know one of our concerns from the get-go has always been parking. So I did have a chance to sit down with Nancy and make sure we analyzed this. Inside of the building, we have a total individual occupancy when we start. So we will have enough desks and or workstation spaces for 26 individuals. The total individuals that will move into the building on day one are only 22. Having said that, we have 36 parking spaces out here. So we have more than enough to accommodate staff during the day, as well as allow for businesses, residents, customers to come in, pay their bills, and have activity here. I also did take a quick look at how many people we might have on any typical council night, and including all of council, all of your directors, if all of us showed up, and then a few of the extras that always come, that would be about 23 people. So again, you're going to have more than enough parking should we have a larger crowd. Keeping in mind that these parking spots right here are really like for the fire department and aren't figured into this, as well as you have additional parking along this side of the fire department as well. So I do believe that the question to parking, we can kind of, if you will, put to bed a little bit. We've also allowed for handicap parking closer to the building here, and then some additional parking stalls. So this is the main entrance level coming in off of Haymaker. Is that a little small for everybody? Because I can probably switch to a bigger screen.
Yeah, it's a little small.
here we
A little big.
go. So this again is as we come in, oops, too fast. As we come in off of Haymaker, right there at the corner of Haymaker and Water Street, again, just to quickly refresh everybody, we're coming into this nice atrium area. Again, it's all glass. We're gonna have a solid wall here. We had talked about a couple options, whether this is a green wall, it's a display wall. We have plenty of things we can do with that. As well, if you remember, we also decided that we would like to have maybe a nice small meeting room or an area where hors d'oeuvres or food could be served. And that's right here in this location. Again, glass here with a solid wall and access off the main hallway. This is going to be such a spectacular spot for small things or things that we want to do. Again, we've talked about having children's things where art displays are here, or just public art displays, or small meetings or town gatherings, maybe bringing businesses or residents in. So it's really, I've got some pictures when we get to the end, or I should say Brandstetter does, that really is going to give you a feel of what this looks like. Again, as you come in, you can head down the hallway and head down to the council chambers. If you remember, down in this area is staff area, but mostly just storage, and then the emergency stairwell here. Again, we've done a lot to be able to accommodate your office as well as what would be your executive session area. Keeping with transparency, we've chosen, and I believe we heard this, that this be glass. So people do have an option to see you when you go in here, or it can, you know, we could hang curtains or something if you felt you needed a little more privacy. Again, this is just our council chambers, the dais, our seating, public restrooms, and the elevator. So again, this is all glass in here. So this is a secondary way to get through the building up and down using the stairs and or using the elevators. This is our main level coming in off of the parking lot. So as you know, this is the financial side of it. So this is all of our finances. Again, I think we've done a great job to accommodate their needs, their desires, which are so important, because this is really the main group that really on a daily basis is going to see our residents and our businesses and everybody coming in to pay those bills, inquire on those items, and assess to get that assistance. So what we've been able to do is provide a small little private area here for our person that does and takes care of public taxes, a very nice counter where people can walk up to, pay their bills, get their questions answered. And then the remainder of this is for our workers back here, the controller, our finance director, a conference room, and all of the other employees that work within this area. Again, here's the door that comes in off of that side. So our secondary employee entrance is right here, along with the emergency stairwell here. As we come back out here, you'll see this is the vestibule area. Again, if you can envision coming off of the parking lot, you come in, immediately you'll be hit with a little bit of wayfinding for signs. The main stairwell you'll see again because it's totally glassed in, or the elevator, which will allow you to get up to the second floor or down to council chambers. And then of course, this is our civil service area. Don't forget that we have a little bit of glass right here because again, this is open to below for council chambers. So it really does have a kind of a unique look for people to be able to look in and see whether it may be a wedding that's being performed or a meeting that's going on, or some sort of a special event that we would want other people to have access to.
I have a question.
Sure.
The two main entrances are going to be the first floor, right down at the bottom.
Yes.
And then the second floor here. Now, I thought that we had talked about when you walk in that you would be, you'd see right away somebody to greet you, like the clerk of council, or on the second floor, I know that you have the, well, I see that there's the utilities and things like that, the billing, but where is the clerk of council on the
third floor?
The clerk of council will be located on the third floor. What I thought we had kind of decided, now we could still do that, but I think you would be looking at maybe adding someone because it's going to be difficult to try and get somebody in here with a kiosk or something of that nature. But remember, we had talked about immediately coming in and this being a wall with the technology where it would be a wayfinding board. Maybe it's interactive. They have the ability to push on it. They can see who they're there to see. There's a lot of options for that. But we had just I was under the impression that that was the decision that we had gone with, so that on all 3 floors, that would be exactly the same and people would know where to go.
Okay.
So similar to, we have a lot of wayfinding signs downtown. We figured this was a way that we could pull in that similarity as well. On the 3rd floor again, this is up here. We have our city manager's office, the assistant to the city manager, economic development, and our mayor and our clerk of council. So this is kind of that administrative wing, if you will, those running the city and making sure that we're taking care of all of that business. There's a conference room here, a work area, and then a storage area. As you come up and out of those steps, the beauty of this area right here is when they get here, we do have the administrative assistant for the law department. All of this is glass along here, along with the clerk of council that also has glass. So they would be able to see if somebody came up the stairs or came off the elevator and wasn't quite sure where to go. They'd have the ability to be able to address those people. This would be our law area. So we have our administrative assistant to the law director, their storage, the assistant law director, and of course, our law director's office. Across the hall from there, again, is our HR manager, her storage, and all the needs that she would have.
Melanie,
Yes.
given the fact that our world has gone nuts, have we given any consideration to metal detectors or no?
We haven't had that specific discussion, but what I can say is we've looked at different ways. We're securing everybody's pads. So if you will, this is a pad area of finance and they will be locked right here. So nobody can physically get into their area. We may have to take a look at how we address perhaps what this is made out of or these walls are made out of. In the same way, we can also make sure that these doors remain locked for anybody else, whether this is HR, civil service, etc. It's certainly something that we have written down as we move forward. What exactly do we want for security? Again, a lot of people have talked, it's just making sure that the pads can be safe and secured. So this door can always be locked. Should we decide that that's what we want, this door will always be locked. We do know that we'll probably, most everybody's been interested, if you will, for the security purposes of swipe cards, because those are the easiest to be able to add or subtract from a system. So those are still things that we're talking about, but we'll certainly make a note of metal detectors as well. Any other questions?
Heidi?
I have one kind of piggybacking on John. I thought we had looked at some people like the clerk of council, the mayor, people that are really in the public eye and you actually see people in their offices. I thought we were going to look at them having 2 exits, like if the one exit's blocked, they can get out through another way. Like the mayor could get into the clerk of council's office, clerk of council could exit into the mayor's office, for example. I see that that's true for some of the other offices, like the city manager has a way to get to the assistant. I'm just saying that might be something we might want to consider looking at for extra security.
Okay, we can certainly take a look at that. I think one of the major security issues was making sure that they had a secondary way from the front, which would be here, and everybody has a secondary way out through this rear stairwell as well. So, should somebody show up, this would be, a way that, the mayor could slip out if he needed to, because the clerk would be handling that person over here. So, but we can certainly take another look at that as well.
I had a question.
Sure.
Go ahead. I can't see everybody for some reason.
I really like the design of the building much better. I'm glad that they decided to take off that like patio area on the front. It makes it look much, much better. Mm-hmm. And the parking lot, is it going to be angled? Is that what I saw? Or is it going to be a flat parking lot? Because it looked like the first part, they were like going up a hill.
So I was really surprised at the elevation change that we have here. It is a little bit tricky in what we're going to have to do. When you're out there, it seems relatively flat, but if you walk out there and you're coming up from Water Street, there's an incline up. And then if you go into the police building, there is also an incline coming back out to Day Street. So we do have a little bit of an elevation issue, but right now what's being presented is that you would come in and you would just have normal parking. The only angled parking, if you would be this along the front of the building, and it's really just straight in parking.
Okay, and that's going to be okay for people with handicaps. They're going to be able to handle that's where the handicap parking is going to be, right? Right there next to the building.
If I'm not mistaken, and Nancy can certainly correct me, I believe that this is our flattest area. That's why we've chosen this to be our handicap spots, to be able to accommodate that coming in. We do have some ramps that go up and some ramps that go down.
Yeah, this is Nancy. Where the handicap spots are shown, that's level. Where we slope back down to Day Street is right where her hand is now, kind of going down that side. That's why we put handicap spots on that part of the building and not the other side.
Okay, so then the part towards Day Street, that's going to be sloped parking lot, and the handicap will be flat.
Correct.
So you're going to be changing the parking, because right now all the parking in the back there is pretty flat, so that's going to get changed.
Actually, it's going to be changed slightly, but believe it or not, there is actually slope in that parking lot, and I didn't notice it until we actually started talking about this. So I think that they'll be trying to meet existing contours. It'll be relatively flat, if you will, but there will be some slope coming back out. We're able to adjust the slope in a better way. Sorry, I'm too fast with my scroll. We're going to be able to address the slope at the drive aprons the best. And Jim Bowling's been helping us to be able to make those determinations on how we're able to handle that slope.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick suggestion or comment. From the parking lot, would it be possible either through the terraced landscaping or at a different spot to have steps and an ADA accessible ramp so that if it's a weekend evening and people want to park there, they can park there and walk across the street to downtown, or if somebody is approaching the building and they want to get up into the parking lot, because it doesn't look like there's a way for pedestrians to do that right now unless they go around the block.
Yeah, they need to go around the sidewalk over to South Water and across that way. That would be an accessible route. Going north to Haymaker, that's really a pretty significant drop. We're talking, 12 feet. So to create a handicap accessible ramp there, it would be a switchback. It's really not practical.
Can we do stairs?
We need to go, today and then over to Water to get across.
We did take a look at that because we actually thought that this area might be a good place maybe to even set a table so that our employees or others could come in here and maybe sit down and be able to enjoy that. But right now, as Nancy stated, we're almost a 12-foot, maybe a little bit greater of a height difference. So each one of these are going to be about 4 feet in height difference, which kind of makes that a little difficult. We can certainly take a look at stairs, but this hill is just so steep and this distance isn't quite giving us enough even for, if you will, a nice landscape step. But we can certainly go back and take another look at it.
Well, my only concern on that is that if you have people parking there on weekends or evenings, you're probably going to develop a cow path across the grass where they go from the parking lot across the street. Is my only concern, that if we figure out a way to put stairs or something so that kind of pave that, then they won't ruin our beautiful landscaping.
Fair enough. I think stairs is definitely an option. I was just replying to the trying to get a handicap accessible route up here at Haymaker. But we could definitely get some stairs that work their way down elegantly.
It was just a thought, if that works, then it seems like that would be a long walk around. And for a handicap, maybe they could go around that way, or it was just kind of a suggestion based on how.
Yeah, you're gonna cut right down that hill. Yeah.
I'm just wondering what's the difference between the way it is now or the way it is then. It's the same thing. Who's walking over that hill now?
Not too many people go to the police department though, right? That's not even at City Hall. I have a question also.
Go, Mr. Ferrara.
just to follow up on Gwen's comment with that terrace, wouldn't that all three of those terrace space be more accessible and maybe more likely to be used if you connected the three of those by steps themselves, right? As well as maybe have, and then that could lead you down to the corner where the crosswalk is, where you would cross the street. That's just food for thought right there. Otherwise, you've got three areas there that you really can't use unless you happen to walk out onto one of them. But if they're connected via some stairs, then all three of those terrace areas become more potentially usable in nice weather. But I have a question with regard to the setback on that side for Haymaker. Why wouldn't, it doesn't seem symmetrical, and I ask why, that the north side is recessed in and then the side over on facing Water Street, thank you, is out, extended out.
Well, I'll go first, Nancy. So some of the things that we have to deal with that's a little bit different than anywhere else is the width of this bike path as required to be put in according to the grant that was received for the bike trail that comes through this area. So we needed to push the building back to make sure we could accommodate that. And I don't remember if it's 8 or 10 feet. I apologize. I know Jim's on here. He could help me with that as well. In addition to that, I think it's just the elevation and the grade. We begin to lose any kind of light on this side of the building. So,
north, you mean?
Well, remember this portion, once we get to about here where the hand is, we're starting on that very first floor to be completely underground.
Okay.
So if I could chime in.
Can I, excuse me one second, let me just finish that question. So it's either underground if it's symmetrical with I was going to point to the thing that doesn't do you any good, with the corner, the rounded corner there, or whether it's set back 10 feet or not, it's still going to be underground, is it not? The first floor, those first floor windows?
Not all of them are with this one. We also were able to get a little bit more of a landscaped area. So, and again, Nancy, you may have some more reasons why you pulled this back other than maybe the angle of the building or the look.
So we really pulled it back for the entry at the corner so that we had a little space. If you go to a little bit to the left there, Melanie, the bike path goes across, and basically the end of those little brick lines that we're showing is the outside of the bike path. But we wanted to have some space in front of the building there. The reason that it's tighter to Water Street is at the same time, we want to get as much parking as we possibly can. So that's why we pulled it closer to Water Street, but we wanted to have more space at the corner as a little plaza area in front of the building.
And architecturally, you don't find that odd that, or I don't know, claim to know anything about architecture other than likes or dislikes, but it would seem it would be a more, I don't know, a better design if there was all symmetrical, I guess. I don't see that as the symmetry between those two sides seems odd.
Yeah, I have a comment. To piggyback on.
Are you done, Garret?
No, I'm not done. I'd like to get Nancy's answer on that.
I don't know that the symmetry of the architecture relates that much to the relationship to the street in this case. I don't know how else to answer that. Again, we're trying to maximize the parking area behind, but still give enough space in front of the building there. And I think we actually had it closer to Water Street and we've pulled it back a little bit. I'm trying to remember where exactly the police station building sits. I think it's even closer to Water Street.
So Nancy, if I could, so the way I interpret what you're saying is it just becomes more user-friendly because you've got more space and it doesn't look like it's right on top of Haymaker. It's
correct.
Okay. I guess I'm not crazy about it, but that makes sense and I can see why we would do it. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Heidi, did you have something?
Yeah, I want to say to Garret, I don't think symmetry is possible with this building, but I think balance is more the word. And I think that holistically, I think it does show balance to some extent, you know, looking at the massing and the landscaping. And I think everything's tied well together. I'm being a little nitpicky here with the trees, street trees. One of my favorite parts of the building, I think it's a lot of our favorite, is that archway over the council chambers facing Water Street. And I think it would be kind of nice to kind of frame that with landscaping rather than covering it with landscaping. And my other question was, is there going to be any street furniture, like out in the back parking lot when people are waiting for a ride maybe, or even in the front where people could have a seat and talk, or employees can also have a chance to enjoy being outside on lunch breaks.
Yeah, Heidi, I think those are great ideas. At this point, the rendering, we're just kind of putting something there to say, hey, we have a strip where we can have street trees. There is an area there we can have landscaping around the council window. I think it's a great idea to design that to accentuate that. And street furniture, definitely, we've just started showing some benches at the front. We know we want bike racks somewhere. I think we should talk about what we need on the opposite side of the building as well. So we'll definitely delve into that.
Okay, and where are the solar panels?
Oh, hold on. It's going to be a surprise.
Oh, it's a surprise.
Hold on, don't say anything.
They're in the basement.
When you get your electric.
Basement, yeah.
Melanie.
Okay, so let's get back. Any other questions with the floor plans? Oh, Mr. Kuhar?
I have one more.
Oh,
I can't see John. John, you got your hand up?
I did, but
Oh,
I don't think they want to answer my question. Because my question was, I thought I saw solar panels with lounge chairs and flower pots, but they might not want to answer that.
No, well, Melanie said it's coming.
It's coming.
All right, Garret, do you have your hand back up?
So,
go ahead.
My other question goes back to maybe it's the fourth slide. There's a representation of space above council chambers. Are we going to discuss that and the cost of that later? Because
yes, sir.
Oh, when tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll let you go to your surprise package.
Thank you.
Oh, to add on, I think the building looks beautiful the way you have it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So now we wanted to take a look at some of the exterior lighting. So here's what the building would look like at night. We thought this was really a great thing. Again, you can begin to see just how beautiful it looks looking into the building. People can get a sense of what's going on. If we did have displays in here or we were using things, you'd still be able to see those. You've got some lighting underneath the edge and the cornice area here along all of the building, and then some up lighting this way along the edges between the windows. Now, the beauty is a lot of the lighting that we're looking at, of course, is going to be LEDs in order to get our biggest bang for our buck and also be cost efficient and those kinds of things. So one of the great things, as you know, I am dear and near to my heart is being able to change lighting and do things spectacular with buildings, especially at different times during the year. So we have the ability to take a look at some of these LED lightings that allow us to change this lighting at different times throughout the year. So that's what we're looking at. Whoops, darn it. Whoops, I didn't want to show this yet. Let me go back. So that's some of your night lighting that you see. Now, one of the things getting to our solar panels that they did really well that I wanted to have an opportunity to show you is what our day lighting study looks like. One of the hardest things that we've had when we're taking a look at the actual materials is that it looks completely different throughout the day. So if we're looking at it in a shaded area, it takes on one look. If we're in the bright sunshine, it takes another look. If it's early in the morning, it's one look. And at the afternoon, it's another look. I think what you guys have asked us to take a look at in the type of brick is going to be outstanding. And so they did a daylighting study where we start at 7 a.m. and it takes us to 7 p.m. So I'm going to click through it real quick like you just saw, just so you can see the differences of the day. And then I'll go back to the beginning and show you what some of those things look like. So at 7 in the morning, we're going to be a little dark on this side. 9, 11, 1, 3, 5, 7. And hey, look what's on top of the building over here, getting all of that sunshine from the day.
I love the juxtaposition of the fuel inefficient Hummer over on this side. And then we've got the, solar panels on this side. That's outstanding.
That's an electric Hummer.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So pretty interesting look you can see as the daylight changes, how things on our building change.
That was cool.
So here we go with the third level expansion space. We have two different options here. You guys had asked us to take a look at it. So we took a look at it in two different ways. Alternate number 1. This begins to take a look at maybe carrying out some of the newer, more modern area over top of this building. The one thing that I like about this is it sets back and it still allows this to be a prominent feature should you decide to do this. While it does, in my opinion, a little bit take away from the grandeur of what we're trying to do in making this a special spot that really signifies this is our council chambers, this is where the work really takes place, this is what's happening. This is a nice alternate look that we could use up here that doesn't really diminish from the old and the nod to our history. This is what it would look like in a rendering. And a second option then would be just to change it out and to continue the brick up. And again, here, I think this is still just a little more clunky, a little more heavy in my humble opinion. And you really begin, you lose the prominence of what council chambers are.
The thing is, what would go in that build out?
Well, right now we have nothing
And
programmed.
is it needed?
Well, right now, if everybody remembers, when I first kind of got here and we finished with the police building, DSA had already begun a study of what the facility needs were. And it was determined at that time that the additional, I think it's 3,200 square foot, really didn't need to go to anybody. We weren't moving service over. We weren't moving engineering. We weren't moving community development over. So it really wasn't a needed space here. All the spaces that needed to be addressed are already in the building with plenty of room to grow in the future, I feel. This would actually be too small for the health department. So they need something more, if I'm not mistaken, between the 5,000 and 7,000 square foot. And again, they have a little bit of a different clientele. One of the things, at least prior to, and poor Joan hasn't had an opportunity to speak on this, they really wanted to have a separate entrance for their clientele. This would require people to all come up through that main entry if we were to ever try and put them in there. But again, this is only 3,200 square feet. Initially speaking, I think we would look at just building it out as a shell. And that cost is around $500,000. If we wanted to fully fit it out, we're probably looking at 650 to 700,000. So just real quick gut reaction to that third level. What does anybody like or dislike about it?
I'll go.
Garret?
I don't like the, I see your point about the gray thing and how it still highlights the council chambers, but I think the arch window does that. And I personally prefer the brick and keeping it consistent. I think as soon as you start mixing in those different materials in there, it's not going to have the last, I think, that you would get from a traditional brick, more traditional type building, and it keeps it more traditional that way. So I think it's, I like it. And when we start talking about money about it, I'll go further into the money side of it, but because I think it makes sense to build it with today.
Roger?
Everything else looks great. It's really, really nice.
Roger.
Well, I'm the one who keeps beating the drum for that finished look, and I think that there were two words that have been used. By the way, I love the looks of the building. I think it's tremendous. I think at first I was taken aback by the somewhat gray, in the front there, but it has grown on me as I've been looking at it since Monday. But let me just suggest this: that I think that I know I agree with Garret. I think putting the gray up there, it's a waste of time. The balance is what's missing. I really think that it looks like an unfinished building without that third floor. I might be wrong. Other people may look at it differently, but I think you bring up a good point. They come across that bridge, they see this beautiful building, and then the first question is, wow, why is it unfinished? That lack of balance and symmetry is important. And lastly, I like the brick option, and I think you can arch those windows up above. I'd rather throw a few more dollars and have those windows arched also, so that whole section just screams as that's where the work is being done, and that nod to the past. So that would be my take on it. I like the brick. I like the idea of those windows up there, but I think you ought to arch those windows. I think that our architects have proven that they can take our ideas and they can make them work. So I think you can do more with that third floor with those windows, so that really still looks great. But I'll talk about the financing later.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have something to contrast it. I'm not really sold on the second story over the council chambers. I actually like the look. I don't think it looks like an unfinished building. I think also the public might be pretty amenable to us not spending $500,000 and then just saying, if we need it, we can do it later, rather than assuming we're going to need it. But that would be an argument over financing. For the architectural appeal, I do like it without that top. It also gives people the opportunity to see the solar panels. And number two, I agree with Garret. If we do that second story, I like the brick, and I agree with Roger in that I think we can dress up those upper windows. I thought it look too busy with the metal on top.
I agree.
Okay,
Anybody else?
yeah, Jerry?
Go ahead. I can't see you, Tracy.
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna be, I'm gonna agree with Heidi on part of it as far as the finance goes. I think that if we don't need it, let's not put it there. And then I'm gonna say, as an art major, I actually like the gray inset better because it ties the front to the side there, and I like it better than the brick.
Yeah, I'm here,
Anybody
Mr.
else?
Mayor.
Go ahead, John.
I think it looks better without that extra floor on top. And if you consider that with technology today, a lot of stuff are getting smaller, more people are doing their jobs from home, and $700,000 after a pandemic would probably go a lot farther.
That it?
Yep.
Anybody else? Well, you all know how I feel about that story over the council chamber. I don't think it's needed. It's not mandated. I think it takes away from the appealing view of that building. I think it looks a lot better with it not being there, and it's more impressive to the aesthetics of the whole building overall. But that's my thing.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think it's needed right now. It would be very difficult to justify to taxpayers. So I think it looks very good to me without it. So I just, without having a need for it. And I also think that with emerging technology, we're going to be needing less and less storage space for paper documents and things like that. So if anything, we'll probably open up some space as we're able to store our documents in other places. We'll have some of that storage space we could repurpose.
Mr. Mayor?
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
You can't build a 50-year building looking at a 3-month pandemic or a 6-month pandemic, right? So you've got to keep that in the context of history and the future timeline. We've always bandied about the idea of community development, and the talk of that all of our offices, all of our departments should be under one roof, and so we might as well get to the finance portion of it, because I mean that's ultimately what drives it, and when you can get something at that cost at rates where they are today, again, I'll go over the numbers later, but it makes sense. And I haven't asked, I asked this, but is Chief Tosco, are you still on the line? Is he still on?
Nope, doesn't look like it.
Because, when we built that fire department 20 years ago, probably, right? And my guess is.
Yeah, 2002.
Hi, Chief, how are you?
Fine, how are you? Yes, 2002.
Right, okay, so 18 years ago. And how are you space-wise now in there?
It's tight, actually, especially storage and our equipment. Our number of squads, number of ambulances have gone up, so it's a little bit tight.
And would you attest that you and I haven't talked about this before today?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, and I guess, there's my point is, that building still seems new, but it's 20 years ago, almost 18 years. And so time moves fast, and, government isn't going away by any stretch. And it appears the way that it's going, it continues to get bigger. So, that I don't think that's the main argument for it. I think it's the finances and the potential use for it, and looking down the road, not 3 months, 3 years, but 20 years, 30 years. And are we going to look back and are we doing something? If we're supposed to be leading the community right now, we need to set up future leaders to be in a good financial position also. And the cost to do that, it could be 10 years, 20 years from now, will be 5 times the cost of what we pay today. So that's my take on it.
Mike,
You're muted.
I agree with Garrett, and I don't need to see those solar panels. You have them on there. That's why we have them on there. That's part of the leads thing anyway, I believe. So I think it's better to build it out now. And like you said, in 5 years, it's going to cost twice as much. I don't know.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Robin.
Mayor.
Robin.
Yeah, I have to echo Garrett, Mike, Roger. I think that it's much more efficacious for us to look at having the build out later on and the cost aspect then as opposed to now. It is being very, I think, forward looking to identify our needs. And we know that's going to happen. And the chief has said it right now. They're tight over there after 20 years, and we're going to be in that position. If not, 5 or 10 years from now, 20 years. And that building's going to be around for about 50. So I would tend to agree that us identifying that need now and acting now will be more beneficial from a cost standpoint, and actually more beneficial for us as we identify our needs here in the future and being able to adapt. So I tend to agree with what Garrett's saying. I think that would be the much more appropriate thing to do. I do understand, a situation of where we are right now. We are in difficult times, and we do have to consider that. But leadership is identifying future needs and future costs. And I think by doing that, we are showing leadership. And so I think that's something we need to duly consider.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, John.
Well, it seems to me that, you're comparing apples to oranges. Now, if we were building a new hospital or a new fire station where it's how many bodies can we get under one roof, that would be one thing. But if you look at the world corporate structure and business structure, we're looking at operational values and technology. The trend today is not to have bigger centers with higher overhead to get the job done. There people are utilizing smaller centers, and there's more and more people operating from satellite offices and homes than ever has been in history. And the technology is only going to actually, this pandemic promotes people to look for new ways of operating, and a lot of the things that we wouldn't even thought of doing 2 years ago, we're going to be doing from now on. And it's when the illness is gone, we're still going to be looking at curbside pickups and ordering and schooling from remote locations. I was talking with the Oriental gentleman the other day, and he says, why do we continue to use 100-year-old school systems and slow people down and have all this expense when all this can be done with the high tech without that happening? And I'm looking at the same thing here with the facility to operate our city. I think we're going to need less space for storage, less space for people. We're not building a hospital.
Jerry?
Go ahead, Tracy.
Well, don't we also have extra space on the building as it is? I mean, isn't there extra space already that we're going to go into if we need it? So we don't need that extra third floor over the council chambers anyway. I thought there was a lot of empty space right now.
Well, go ahead, Melanie.
We do. We've built in several conference rooms. We have a large amount of storage. Now, keep in mind, while this discussion is great to have, as we move farther along with a final number and we really look at finances, storage space and those kinds of things are always the first thing to go. So I think you have plenty right now to grow into. I don't see us, I could be wrong, but I don't see us, we have 22 people moving in on day one. I don't see us doubling that to another 22 for a very long time. If at all, we would grow slightly because we all need some growth in that. But I do believe that there's plenty of room as far as offices, conference rooms, and storage areas right now. Nancy, as an architect, you've seen a lot of this. That was one of my biggest concerns, and I think we've covered that. So unless you have anything to add.
The ones that took the tour that Melanie had, if you remember when we went to Solon, you found out their building was too big for what they needed because the technology to service the people is getting better. And you remember the mayor taking his frown and said, well, we had this spot, but we don't need it anymore. That's another variable you have to look at.
Yeah, but
I have something too.
Go ahead.
Go
Rob.
ahead.
It increases the operating cost to have another floor on it, even if we're not like making it totally comfortable. It's still going to cost more to operate to keep those, that area from getting too cold or too hot or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I think we're kind of half and half here on the council. I just think that the citizens aren't going to want to see us overbuilding at this time when we can't even name like potential uses for it. So.
Well.
Go ahead, Robin.
Go ahead, Robin.
No, that's fine. I was just listening.
Mr. Mayor, I got something to say. So I think we can, rationalize that pretty well with the potential for growth. I think, the only growing sector these days and over the past decades has been government, right? So I think most people realize that the size and scope of government has changed and continues to grow. And so, but we're talking about all this stuff, and the operating costs are inconsequential compared to what the potential cost would be if you have to build it out in the future. So, if you look at where interest rates are today, I'm pretty sure, Rhonda, right? We're AA rated for the city of Kent, correct? I'm going to say yes. 30-year municipal bonds right now are yielding 1.65%. So let's just say, and that's almost cut in half from 4.5 to 5 years ago when we decided that we were going to sell the city hall. So, at a 4% rate on a $6 million project, you're looking at $240,000 a year, right? For just for the interest payments, right? So on a $8 million project today, at 2%, you're looking at $160,000. That's a $80,000 savings, and you're getting you're spending $2 million more on the building. So when you put what your costs are today, what you were anticipating to be when we originally talked about building the project, our costs are less, right? So it comes down to leadership and future, and setting up future leadership to be cost efficient. But it also comes down to capitalizing on the interest rate environment that we have today, which is extremely, it's an all-time low. So 2 years from now, we could be back up at 4% on a 30-year AA municipal bond. So, it's capitalizing on opportunities when they come. And I think, I would ask Nancy, my guess is they would always say, yes, build more if you can, because you're going to have a potential use for it at some point in time, especially at these rates. So
I don't agree with you, Garrett. If you look at when we moved out of your Sparkle Market up there, we had X amount of employees in the budget department. Now we have less. So actually our structure is shrinking, but we're giving a better service. So the need for a vacant piece of room on top of the council chamber, I just don't think it's merited. And you're right, the money's right now, but I don't think it's merited.
I hear you, Jerry, and I respect your opinion, but when they sold Sparkle Market, people asked, what the hell are you going to do with all that space? Why do you need that much space? Right? That was 1992, 94, right?
But we have less people in the Budget and Finance Committee than we have, or not the committee, the department, than we had when we were in the Sparkle Market.
But we outgrew the space, but there's still more people. I get that.
No, we didn't outgrow the space. We moved.
But I think we have pretty much outgrew the space over at.
No, there was a lot of extra space.
Yes.
Well, it wasn't efficient space.
Correct.
Everyone's entitled to their opinions, I guess. I respect them, but I think it's an opportunity that we shouldn't pass up.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would also say that, we all love the fact that we're going to have a new city hall. We have been promising, the administration, the council has been promising this community a new city hall since the time when we bought the Sparkle Mart, right? And we moved out of there. The time has come where we need to build this city hall. We need to fulfill that promise that was made. And the fact of the matter is that we're not going to. We're just not going to agree on this. I love the looks of what we're doing here. I still believe that we should be forward thinking. And I understand John's argument, although I would take a little bit of umbrage about his understanding about schools and education, but that's a whole nother conversation. The fact of the matter is that this is a 100-year building. We keep saying 50 years. We keep honoring our old buildings. We even moved that building and put it down in North Water Street because we feel that buildings have bones and they're old and we want to take care of them. So to say this is a 50-year building, I think is a slap in the face of all of our taxpayers. This is going to be a 100-year building. And I guarantee you that life is going to be different 5 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, certainly 100 years from now. So my feeling is that we build it now because it's cheap. I know it doesn't sound cheap when we start talking about an extra $500,000 or $700,000. but it is cheap compared to what it's going to be. These are historic times of low interest rates, and the way things are going in the world with the pandemic, it might be double or triple to do it in 5 or 10 years. So my argument is that I respect everyone's position on it, but I believe that we ought to do it, and we ought to do it now, because that's what good leadership does.
No, you can't prove the merit of that space over the cost, even though it's going to be cheaper now than it will be 50 years now if they ever do it, and I don't think they ever will.
Space is hello? Yeah, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Okay. Space is always a premium. You're not getting away from that. It's cheaper to do now than later. We will always find the ability to use space. It's smart to do it now as opposed to later, and it's good leadership. I certainly do and respect and understand others of you who are pulling back and saying that we have to be more responsible. Like you said, this is an argument that can go either way. But I believe that we are acting appropriately. We are acting in a forward-looking manner to address the situation now as opposed to later. Make no mistake about it. Like I said, space is always at a premium, better now because of the historical financial circumstances we find ourselves in. We don't know when we'll ever find ourselves in that position again. We should act now. That's good, strong, positive, visionary leadership.
Mayor?
Heidi.
I think, well, I feel really uncomfortable because of this pandemic. We really don't know what's going to be happening with our revenue over time. I just feel really uncomfortable building more than we need. And who knows, we may need to borrow $500,000 for some other purpose, coming down, just to, help our town get through this. And I don't know, I think I'd like to have something in reserve there. So that's my argument. I mean, I don't really want to try to explain to the people that, oh, this is an opportunity. And sometimes leadership says no. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I agree with Heidi. I mean, our economy has contracted by 10% already, and it's just going to get worse, and we're going to be losing revenues. And I don't want to have to choose between financing a potential building that we might use versus laying off some police officers or some firemen or something like that, some city employees, which is coming because I don't know if we're getting any help from the federal government, and our revenues are just going down and down. So I'd rather not build it now. And when we're in a better financial position as a city, then they might be able to build it better in the future.
Mr. Mayor.
John.
Yeah. One final note. Yeah, you're right. You're all right. We can build it cheaper now probably than we can in 5 years. So we can build it bigger and spend more of the taxpayers' money. But the one thing you're forgetting, if we're building a 50-year building, what we're going to have in 50 years is a 50-year-old bigger building that's dilapidated and starting to fall apart and takes more money. I mean, look at the old fire station. Buildings don't stay new for 50 years. So what we're creating is a bigger expense 50 years from now. Maybe 40 years from now, it'll be a coliseum we don't need, and we would tear it down and operate out of a third of that size. We don't know because we don't have a crystal ball, and we never will have a crystal ball, or we wouldn't have figured out where we're at today. but I know a 50-year-old building that's bigger is 50 years more of expense. And we'll have 50-year-old technology that needs upgraded. No matter what we do, no matter what size it is, when it gets older, it gets less useful as it ages.
All right, is there any more on it? If not, we're gonna move forward. Doesn't seem like we're
I saw Jack had his
gonna
hand
solve
up.
it. Who?
Yeah,
Jack.
I can't see his picture. I'm sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
that's okay. Listen, I have to agree with one part of what John Kuhar said, and that is that we don't have a crystal ball. But I've been on 3 building planning committees, and we thought we had the best plan to last us for the life of the building. And in all of the cases, there just wasn't enough storage 20 years later. I mean, there's not enough classrooms, there's not enough storage, there's not enough room. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't have a crystal ball. And so it's a tough, I respect all your opinions as well. I get it. I get what you're all saying. So it's a tough one.
I just learned tonight, space is a premium, John, and so we'll move on.
Yeah, I got one more question, Jerry.
Ed,
What does
Tracy.
Rhonda have to say about it?
Well, she's got her own department. Rhonda?
So
She's the money
the-
person.
with the interest rates the way they are, it is my opinion that building space now is going to be a lot cheaper than building it, 5, 10, 20 years from now, if we do end up needing it. Then that, I guess, is the big question right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had another department that came into the building, or we were expanding in some way with other departments, then what? And then even maybe you could get rid of the Overholt, we ended up moving some of the departments into this building. Could you get rid of the Overholt location? I mean, or the health department, move them in and kind of move things around a little bit? I don't know.
All right, where are we, guys?
Well,
Yep. Melanie, you want to go further?
I just have a few extra drawings that I want to show you about the possibility of what it looks like. What I'd like to do, and it's just a suggestion, I was texting Nancy, we could give you guys a couple weeks to think about this. Rhonda and I could really sit down and push some pencil to paper to really give you an idea. What are those rates? What are those dollar amounts? What would it cost if we left it empty on an annual basis? I was starting to work on some of that this afternoon and just ran out of time prior to this evening. My only concern is that I don't want to take 6 months before we make this decision, because we're moving on to making our construction drawings and stuff. And so the longer, well, it's only adding a 3rd floor. Nancy can do that in a day. It will require some things to be different. So does that sound like a plan to at least try and do that and maybe get some information back to you guys?
Yeah, and can I make one more comment, please, Jerry?
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, when this project first started, we had talked about moving other departments into the building, and we decided not to do that because, as you said, the health department wants to be on their own. There's not enough space for them. There's not enough entrance. The service department is down there with the equipment, and so community development and the engineering was down by service department because they all interacted with each other. So these departments didn't want to come into the main city hall building. They wanted to be separate where they were.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I don't know who would be moving into this big space then. Just paper?
Well, that could change with the next administration or the next leader of community development. I mean, that just because they say they want it today doesn't mean that the next person that comes in says, hey, why isn't community development next to the city manager, and where I can run ideas by him and that type of thing. So,
Well, and I think we talked about that, where the person was going back and forth between the city hall and the community development department, and there wasn't any problem with that, correct, Dave?
On the other side of the coin, if Overholt were to close down, we would sell that. It would go back on the tax duplicate, and we'd actually be saving the taxpayers money. So there's a variety of ways of looking at that. I'm just saying that all arguments don't hold the same merit, because That land down there it's our land, and we could sell that if we decided to move the into the city hall here. So I don't know that that's a good argument.
I'd like to decide this in 2 weeks. I also like to get the total dollar amount, because if we're talking about adding $500,000 or $600,000, we need to know what the base amount is that we're talking about adding it to. So I like Melanie's idea about getting some more information, getting some more financials, and coming back, and in 2 weeks just nailing this down and deciding then.
I would agree with Gwen, and I would even go further and say, look, if we need to have a vote, do we proceed with the plan as it is with, with the contingency being the third floor? Let's get moving on. I think everybody's pretty happy with what we've got here.
Happy about the third floor? No.
One other option.
I'm talking about the plan in general, and to say that they can move forward with
the rest
build out and the construction plans and start getting things lined up instead of waiting till we determine what to do with the third floor. I mean, to clear the dirt has nothing to do with the third floor. So let's start moving dirt. Let's get going on it. Let's not wait. Let's not wait 2 months. Let's not wait 6 months, right? So let's make a decision that we want to proceed, and then we'll finalize it over the next couple of weeks when we get some financials from Melanie and Rhonda.
All right, Melanie.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So now I'm just going to run through these quickly, just in the reference of time. I wanted you guys to begin to get a feel of what this inside's going to look like, because in another month or so, we've got to start coming to you guys with colors. We know that you want to look at more of the softer beiges and earthy tones. We also have some nice grays that would work in this building possibly. We've talked to staff, so we're kind of honing in on that as well. But this is what council chambers would look like as you came in through the doors. You have you're only up 6 inches here, a nice marker back here. There might be some sound softening boards or some nice interesting things that might hang from here. Interesting looks. We're also trying to pull into the ceiling to make it look a little bit different, so it's not just the same square pattern as a lot of ceilings have. This is what it would look like as you went into your executive session or your council chamber conference room. This is what it looks like. If you can envision, we're standing back a little bit, but this is the second floor looking out into the council chambers. So again, if you were imagining walking up to the edge of that, you'd see all the tables, the chairs. It's just a great look. It's really beginning to come along. This is the main entrance as you come in off of Haymaker, and you come into this open space. This is the second story here with the balcony effect, if you will, where this is all open. Again, this is that conference room eating area right off the main area down here. Again, a little bit of glass so that you have the ability to stay in. And then this is also a conference room on the second floor. Again, this is just another look of that entrance lobby, but now we're looking back as you would walk into council chambers. Second area overlooking the balcony. Again, really, really nice and open with the glass staircase here. So again, you're really going to get an open, bright feeling in this area. And there is your Kent City Hall. So I thank everybody for your comments. We'll take those back. We'll go with it. I appreciate it. I'm glad everybody's happy. If you missed something or you come up with something a little bit later, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. But I'm really glad that you're pleased with it. I'm really excited where we've come from and where we started and where we're really going to kind of end in on. I think it's going to be a building that I really hope you all love and that you all are very proud of.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, we're going to move on. Kent School request to withdraw for the civil service. I'm understanding that Hope and Suzanne are going to speak to this.
Yeah, well, let me
I'm
just.
sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Let me just give you a little intro because it may not take a lot. Hope and Suzanne can be on standby if you have any questions. But this is pretty much procedural matter that the school system, the superintendent notified me a couple of weeks back and said that they have reached agreement amongst themselves with their union, with their school board, to no longer use the city's civil service for hiring positions. And apparently the legal process to step out of that requires a resolution from council. So I don't think, I can tell you there will be some minor savings probably to the city because we will have a little bit less testing to do, to pay for and stuff like that. And Suzanne could talk about that. But generally speaking, like I said, this is mainly a procedural issue. That's it.
Oh, for Suzanne.
Yes, you know what, council, the Constitution of the state of Ohio does not require public school employees to be tested by municipal civil service agents or civil service commissions, only counties and cities. This is actually, I've never worked in a city that actually serviced the public schools because the public schools are typically out of it.
Hey, Suzanne, you want to add?
Basically, I did talk to Jim Sawyers, and what Hope's saying, he pretty much confirmed that no city or no school that he's aware of in the area still uses civil service commissions. I mean, if you have specific questions about savings and stuff, I have a few of those numbers, but basically they think it would be more efficient for them to be able to hire. They were in a negotiation year and the union agreed. So that's kind of why they were wanting to move forward with this now.
Okay,
Suzanne?
Is that the presentation? All right, John, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
By not using the civil service, does that, I don't know, would it open the door to selective hiring versus the civil service more of a open the door to all? I mean, I would think going through the civil service, you're not getting all your cousins and uncles working at the job, you know, because everybody's got the opportunity to go take the test. Whereas if you didn't have the civil service in the middle, pretty much pick who you want.
Well, I'm not related to anyone in the city. And I think you got a pretty good law director. But no,
I was going to say civil service doesn't necessarily stop that. Policies do. But also the school did tell me that they also found that when they did not use civil service testing, they were able to get more applicants because people thought it was too many hurdles to jump through for hiring.
Well, I'm asking about that.
Question?
Go ahead, Robin.
Suzanne, the unions actually signed off on that?
Well, they did. It was a point that they, nope.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that answer.
I don't know who that was. Yes, they did actually sign off on it, Robin.
That's Robin asking the question.
Yeah, my question was that the unions actually signed off on not going through civil service?
Yes, they did.
Wow, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mike had his hand up.
I don't have anything.
Oh, okay, go Roger.
And I believe it was the 1982 Charter Review. The schools actually came to the Charter Review Commission and asked us to take them out of civil service. This was back in 1982, I believe it was. And the reason that they did it is because exactly the statement that it was hard to get candidates. It was easier to recruit candidates if they didn't have to go through the hurdles of civil service. So I can just tell you that working in the schools, we would get candidates, and a lot of times there were real good candidates who said, "No, I'm not taking a civil service test," and so they wouldn't apply, and that's okay. But I don't believe in John's case with his statement. I don't believe that our school system does anything but bend over backwards to get the absolute best people in that school system. Now, maybe things have changed. I don't believe that to be the case, but I do know there's history there that they've been wanting to be out of the civil service. And I'm kind of surprised, too, that the union signed off on it. But
Gwen, did you have your hand up?
No, thank you.
Oh, all right. John, go ahead.
Yeah, Suzanne, let me ask you this. When you have a position that comes up for the city, do you ever find a shortage of applicants for the civil service test?
From civil service, yes, at times we have, but usually it's more, most of the time what I've seen, it's not because of the civil service testing necessarily, it's because of the requirements for the position.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Well, do we have a preference?
Well, I think that I'll make a motion that we grant the resolution to allow the Kent City Schools to move out of the civil service.
I'll second that, Roger.
Second that by Jack. Roger, is there further discussion?
No, I think it speaks for itself.
All right, Jack, is there further discussion?
No.
You wanted it.
Is there anybody else has discussion? John?
I'm going to vote against the motion strictly because it's, to me, it's almost like there's a better form of transparency when the civil service is involved. I might be wrong, but that's just my inner feelings.
All right, anybody else? I'm gonna call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign?
No.
No.
2 noes.
Aye.
3.
3. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see you. 3 noes. It passes though. All right, I got a question for Hope. Where are you? Okay.
Right here.
According to our Civil Service Commission, between the city and the school district, it's 2 different things. We have members that live outside of the city limits of the city of Kent because they're actually still in the 44240 zip code. Is that going to change anything there?
I'll take a look at that. I'll see what the membership is for that because it might change that. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
I have a question though.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
My question was, I thought that the law director said that this was kind of pro forma, that it really kind of doesn't matter.
No, I didn't say that. I indicated that the Constitution doesn't require public school employees to be placed under municipal civil service commission. I indicated that a lot of school districts don't use municipal civil service commissions, but it is up to you as the legislative authority to decide what jurisdiction your civil service commission has.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike, you have your finger up?
But there are a lot of cities that also don't use civil service too, correct?
I
know.
No, I mean, every city that I'm aware of has civil service, but I will tell you this, that it's from city to city, the classifications that are subject to civil service is different. Yes. Yeah.
Because I know they don't use it at the university either.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Does anyone hear that voice that is coming through talking? That's not one of us.
Yes.
Okay, I do too.
That's what I heard earlier when Robin was trying to talk.
Yeah, I did too. No, the university does not mic. County and city employees.
All right, the motion was made and it passed. So we're going to move on. We're done with the committee of the whole. We're going to move into community development, Mr. Kuhar.
Okay, we have the agreement with the Brownfield Restoration Group. Bridget or Dave, are you around?
Yeah, can you guys still hear me? I lost my video.
We hear you.
Can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I don't know why the video feed, I guess Amy decided she got tired of looking at me. So
No.
yeah, I'm glad you're still there because I didn't want to have to reboot. Yeah, that's so okay. So Bridget's not available tonight, but I told her I would handle this. This is actually, for those of you that have been in the community long enough, you may remember the, I think it's the World Import site, former World Import site. It's part of the West River redevelopment. The specific address, I think, is 301 West Main Street. There was a tank, underground storage tank that was there that I believe it's been removed, but there's monitoring work that needs to continue to be finished up that job. And that hasn't happened. And so Bridget was advised from the state of Ohio that we need to finish what we started about 15, 20 years ago. And so that's what this money's for. We have the money budgeted for it at this point. She's been able to secure those funds, working with Rhonda. So I would urge you to approve this because we really would like to finish that up.
John, you're the chairman. Why you have your hand up?
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Okay. Anybody else got their hand up? Okay. There's no audience. So they moved to, someone got a motion?
Move to authorize
I'll second.
with emergency.
Please.
Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes? Kind of threw me off guard there. The next thing up is proposed new CRA 2 agreement with Montrose Mazda.
Yeah, I see Tom's here, so I'll let him carry that one.
Sure. So in September of last year, a gentleman by the name of John Mastrantoni purchased the Montrose Mazda real estate and majority interest in the business. And he's now ready to make a very significant investment in the building. And this is in the CRA 2 area, which requires council approval for any agreement. And he has requested a CRA agreement of 12 years with a 50% property tax exemption for the improvements only. Of course, we'll continue to pay property taxes that are currently assessed on the property. In return for that, they'll commit to creating 10 full-time jobs over the next 3 years, each of which making at least $35,000 a year. Since it's only for 50%, it only required school board notification, not their permission, if you will. And they were notified over 2 weeks ago, which is what the Ohio Revised Code requires. And they made no comment on it. If you look at the second page, it shows the CRA 2 area. This is obviously located in that at 1127 West Main Street. They're ready to make a $3.9 million investment in the building itself, plus another $500,000 in equipment and fixtures, as well as $3 million in additional inventory. If you look at the third sheet that's in your packet, it kind of gives you an estimate of the tax effect of this, and I'll just jump to the property taxes since that's the important part of this. Is they're currently paying $36,000 a year, or just under that, in property taxes. They'll continue paying that. The only way that will change is if the millage changes. If the estimated value or the appraisal of the new improvement is $1 million, the property taxes would have been $25,000 on that without the exemption. It will be $12,500 with the exemption, of which $9,200 will go to the school system. So the school will still get incremental property taxes on this project, even with the 50% abatement or exemption over the next 12 years. So that's it in a summary. Is there any detailed questions I can answer for you?
Tracy?
So if they fail to fulfill the requirements of so many people hired at a price, then they just have to pay full property tax.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all.
And we meet once a year to evaluate that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
A question,
Heidi?
just kind of a general question. I see this is the community reinvestment area. Is it possible to expand this area so that we can include some of the buildings that have been boarded up and or vacant properties that continue along West Main Street? Or
It can be expanded, and I'm not sure what direction you're referring to.
heading west, I believe.
It goes to the city limits already, I
Does it?
believe.
Okay, okay. I guess I'm not familiar with the street system. So it goes all the way to the city limits with Stowe?
Correct, that is correct.
Okay. So it's again, it kind of starts.
And this has been used in the past by Royal Dry Cleaners, most recently in 2015,
Yes.
Don
Yes.
Joseph Toyota, as well as Record Publishing.
Right, I understand that sort of the auto row area. I just wondered, if it would possibly include that whole corridor that we are hoping to maybe incentivize some improvements to. So it sounds like it is already.
It does, yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Come back to council, the motion.
Authorize with emergency.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, we
Aye.
finished discussion, didn't we? Discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes.
Thank you for your time.
That concludes community development.
Health and safety, Mr. Amrhein.
Yes, we have one item, and that's the proposed health equity in all policies. Joan?
Hi, I'm here. Thank you for the chance to speak with you tonight on something other than pandemic. So I just wanted to share with you that in terms of meetings that I've had with other health commissioners when we were discussing actually quite robustly about racism as a public health crisis, because it plainly and clearly is, what are next steps? What do we do? The health department, the Board of Health made that resolution in June that we declared racism as a public health crisis. And I believe that the city council a month or two ago also declared support of Black Lives Matter. And that's a great first step, calling things what they are. And then we need to look at some action steps. I don't think that public health alone can fix the multifactorial problem that is racism, and it certainly is far reaching, but there are some thoughtful things that we can do that are actually fairly easy in terms of some first steps past making resolutions. And that is including health equity in all policies. So when you're looking at projects, when you're looking at improvements, that you intentionally add the lens of how does this either benefit everyone from a health perspective, or how might it unintentionally detract from health equity. So we have a health equity policy at the health department. Any programs or projects that we're going to do, we look at that full scope of, is this going to truly have the benefit that we intend it to? And so that's the next step then, an opportunity for city council to look and use this lens as well. So like similarly to how you might use a cost benefit in terms of is there economic feasibility for a certain project, that then you would use a similar lens to look at and make sure that you're not excluding anybody from attaining the full health potential that is their right. So I did include some information, an SBAR format of background, situation, actions, and recommendations, as well as our current policy. And if you have a favorable view of this, what I would do then is next meeting that you have is actually bring a resolution that had been will be passed by our board at our next meeting, which is Tuesday of next week, that you would have prepared that you could read and vote on. So I don't know if you have any questions, if you had a chance to read the information that hopefully was sent in the packet.
Any questions from council? No? Okay, back to council.
To authorize with an emergency.
Second.
Okay, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Hey, thank you.
Joan.
Land Use Committee, Mr. Ferrara.
Yes, we're going to talk about the proposed parcel donation on Fairchild Avenue to the Kent Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, this one, Kevin is on the call, but I'll just let you know that we had an opportunity, an owner of a parcel is no longer interested and trying to pursue, developing on it or selling it. So he's approached the city and Kevin in particular, because Kevin has his recreational area there, the Forest Lakes recreational area off of Fairchild. So if you had a chance to look at the map, it's sort of the last piece of property as you're heading towards Stowe. It would be like the first piece as you're getting into what's more typically known as the entire subdivision. So it's sort of right there, that wooded lot. And Kevin had a little bit of a assessment done. It looks like it's about a $10,000, just under a $10,000 donation. It's 0.37 acres. So I don't know, Kevin, you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing I would say is if this was a standalone property somewhere else in the city, we wouldn't have an interest. But since it does abut one of our current park areas, I think it's just kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and add that to our park area. We're already over there now maintaining what we do own. So when it comes to operational costs, it'll be very minimal for us to, we mow the frontage on the streets, all we would do.
Any reason we wouldn't take it, Kevin?
I can't see any. We've looked at it. We currently mow probably 20 feet off of Fairchild. We will just extend down and mow the extra probably 50 feet that this will include. It kind of protects, the green area there. It's never going to probably be developed, but eventually we do want to put a trail in that area. So it could add to a buffer for our trail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you need a motion?
Garrett, you're the one. You're the chairman.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting there. One of the numbers of the third floor on the city hall.
Garrett kind of grows on you, doesn't it?
Trying to figure out where to put it.
You are together on the squares.
Can I hear a motion, or is there a motion?
So moved to accept the donation.
Second.
An emergency.
The emergency clause, I think I said.
Or a second?
Emergency, yes.
I'll second it.
Heidi, second that. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. And that's it. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeone.
Yes, renewal of the school resource officer.
Yeah, Police Chief Shearer is not here tonight, so I told him I should be able to handle this. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically the same agreement you've approved. Geez, I'm trying to remember, probably 6 or 7 years now. It's longer than I realized. Time goes fast. The only change that he asked for was basically like a sentence or two that dealt with the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And if the school system is not actually open, then they wouldn't need the officer. And if they're not going to use the officer for those days, we would absorb that cost rather than the school board picking it up. So that's very fair. I know there's talk, at least it's a very fluid situation, but it could very well be that the high school may not have classes, for a day or two. They could be remote for a couple of days. So on those days, Nick said that we would have our school resource officer work regular patrol. So he'd have a shift and he'd work patrol and we'd pay for that share. So that seems fair. I recommend your support.
Questions? Seeing none, back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Further discussion?
No discussion.
I just would add that, in this day and age, how can you not vote for this, right? We've had great success with the police over there at the schools. I know the schools love to have them, and it continues to be a great program. So it's win-win for everybody.
Okay, seeing no more. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. This must be Rhonda. Yeah. Certificates, liens for county outstanding payments.
Correct. This is me. So there's 3 memos that you received for delinquent payments that we have to submit to Portage County to get it added to their property tax. One is for concrete work that's been done. One list is for such items as grass cuttings, other than not anything that's other than utilities. And then the third one is utilities. So there are individuals that have not paid their bills that we were going to add to their property tax bill coming up next year. We have created a payment plan that some individuals actually have taken advantage of. And so if the list that you received, if anything changes between now and September 1st, when we actually have to certify these to the county, if they do a payment plan, then their name will come off of that list.
Any questions? Tracy?
Yeah, I know that a lot of other things have exceptions and stuff because of the pandemic. So the payment plan is our adjustment for the pandemic. Is that it?
Correct. And what we've done is they are making payments over a 6-month period to try to get it kind of cleaned up, and that way it's not so detrimental to them.
And what if the person is unemployed and they're really struggling right now?
Well, we've actually taken one of the payment plans and we've extended it over a 1-year period because the payment was so large, and you know, they were making an effort to put down the down payment that was required, and you know, we said we would work with them. So under the circumstances we did, but we only had one individual that requested that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further, Heidi?
Yeah, just as a comment to, there is funding coming down for these kinds of things. So it's important to be able to refer people that are qualified, income qualified, to local services that can pick up those back utility payments or what have you.
Yes, and Bridget did give us some individual and entities that could assist. And the ladies up at the front desk know of those entities that can help individuals. And so anytime somebody's asking for assistance, we refer them to those entities.
Further? Okay, back to council.
Move to authorize
Second.
with an emergency.
Sorry. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 2020 budget appropriation amendments.
So I'd like to ask, sorry, I'd like to ask council to approve the amended appropriation that I submitted to the city manager in a memo dated July 29th, 2020. You will notice that there's just a very few amount of items that actually have been requested to increase. And then there's one that we wanted to inform you that is moving from one capital project to another in the sewer fund.
Questions? Seeing none, to the council?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Discussion?
Nope.
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That does it for me. Thanks, Rhonda.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, the regular council committee meetings are adjourned. We need a motion, Jack, for executive session.
Okay. I don't have a, yeah, I move for an executive session. Because I don't have a,
For all the reasons that we're allowed to move for it.
Pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, right, Jack?
It needs to be more specific than that.
Amy, go ahead and read it.
I don't have the,
Got it. You want me to read it?
Amy's
Yeah,
gonna read it.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy, she's muted.
Okay, so an executive session immediately following the meeting in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22, Section G, Item 1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licenses, or regulated individual requests a public hearing. To discuss application.
Is there a second to that?
Okay.
second,
Second.
All right, roll call, Amy.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
and Ms. Wallach.
Yes.